you can probably know, we have a very close relationship with UNE, AENOR, and we try to encourage them to do as much as possible in the field of standardization. Just a few words, and of course, to repeat the welcome to Madrid, to Spain. We have today some fresh day, so probably the typical day is quite hot in Madrid will not make suffer you very, very much. But anyway, discuss advantage and disadvantage. You will miss the sunny days in Madrid. But if you are here during 3 or 4 days, you can probably will experience all the types of weather we have. Just as I said a few words, in fact, probably you know the Spanish presidency was responsible for the adoption of 2 pieces of legislation, which are very, very important for this committee, which were the construction product regulation and the eco-design regulation. That, in both of the files, we were involved, very much involved. And well, now we see some of the results and of the process deriving from those pieces of legislation. From my side, I work in the eco-design directive. I also chair, and it's a very great honor for me, the 2 committees here in UNE, which are the Circular Economy Committee, 323, yeah, and the 333 about the digital product passport. It is logically and needless to say that we are very, very happy together with UNE to celebrate this committee, the 442 committee here in Madrid. So I encourage you to make good progress on it. Be sure that from our side, we will try to support all what you do. And I don't know what more to say, that just from my side, I will try to encourage the people working in the committees I mentioned before, the Digital Product Passport Committee and the Circular Economy Committee, a little bit more aside, but also quite important to coordinate as much as possible the activities you have in common. Not too much for me. If you need something in the Ministry of Industry, please tell me. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Just a short introduction of the BIM Standardization Committee. I will take both CEN and ISO, and hopefully you'll understand why. First, a little bit about myself. For those who don't know me, I'm Øyvind Roth. I'm chair of the CEN TC 442, but also the ISO TC 59 SE13. That is the BIM committee in ISO, together with Lisbeth Lamfall, who's sitting here, who's the secretary. So we have actually been running CEN TC 442 for 10 years now. So I think on this meeting, we have a little marking that we have been here for 10 years. Started with from nothing, and as you will see, quite unique publication at the moment, and still quite relevant, more relevant. ISO, as you know, is the International Standardization Committee. Don't dive it. And then we have the Standardization Europe for CEN, which we are a part of, which I always say to the people outside Europe that they don't know actually that what's special with CEN, if that we have a CEN standard, all the national standards has to be conflicting, has to be withdrawn. We should have one standard in Europe. So that is something elsewhere in the world don't have, and we need to every time from them that this is quite important. And another important thing that we use and we should use, that in ISO there's one country, one vote. That means if we are united in Europe, take our standards here to ISO, we will win, because we are very often in majority from Europe. So that is an important to notice, that if we actually succeed to collaborate in Europe, we will also could more easily have something similar or on the international market. Of course, all of this is about the regulation, but CEN/TC 442, as I said, is from 10 years old now. We had a working group before that discussing, do we need this in Europe? We started with the modeling standard, this IFC, should we adopt it as an European standard? Because a lot of discussion, is this the right way to do, or should we do something totally different? So we had a lot of interesting discussion for 1 year, but it ended up an agreement. I think it was about 20 countries participated in that work group, agreed that this yes, we go for this. And then the CEN/BT established CEN/TC 442 in, I think the decision was made in April 2015. And Standards Norway was then the secretariat for that committee. It's important to read what we most of the time discuss is actually the scope, because you often heard the acronym BIM. What is BIM? Building Information Modeling, Management Model, whatever. So that was just a name we selected at that time, because we recognized there was a lot of people out there that stopped listening and listened when we're starting about BIM or Building Information Modeling. But what the scope is that is this standardization of the structure semantic life. So that means for the built environment, that means for the whole life cycle of the built environment. Is building, is roads, is railways, is everything. That is man-made constructions. The committee will develop a structured set of standards, specification report, and this will specify methodologies to define, describe, and monitor, and so on, in short term, how to digitalize the construction ecosystem, or whatever you call it, the sector. So we take generic IT standards. We don't invent the basic standards, that is happening elsewhere, but fit it for the construction needs. So it's much more than a model and around it. Here is the structure we have today. I have not go into details, but what we discussed maybe today a little bit important here on the digital product passport is that we have a working group 7 that maintained a horizontal role, because BT have identified us as have some kind of a horizontal role that we made when you make, for example, a product standard. The committee do that, but how to structure the data and prepare it for digitalization, we advise how that should be done, and make the standard and guidelines for that. And we have this working group 4 that have made the basic standards for used in digital product passport and so on, as data template and forward. And we now have just established this working group 12 that is dealing with this DOPC, how that should be digitalized. Yes, then we have the similar scope on AC13. Quite many countries around the world is active and member. And today we also will discuss or inform a little bit of what's happening in working group 10, that is this EN ISO 19650 on building information, how to manage the data. That's most important standards we have, actually, because it doesn't help with all this data if you are not manage it properly and take care of the data and so on. And that is discussed there. So they have been out there for the first round and is now discussing updating and take experiences from the industry into the committee and check if there is need for updates. I guess you will be informed about that project. Yeah, between these two committees, we have this you have ISO have their regulation, CEN have their regulation, but there is also a detailed agreement how those two organizations shall cooperate. So, and this Vienna agreement, which these rules are, or this agreement are, is quite detailed, and we have used it a lot. And the interesting thing here is that in that Vienna agreement, they say that ISO lead should be default. But we have actually, for many of our projects, because of what I said, that we are developing this in Europe, has accepted that there is CEN lead. That mainly that there is the CEN 442 who do the work. We have more resources to put in it, and more easy for us to organize it. And ISO members are invited into the CEN projects. And then to do that, we, the European or the CEN members, are not allowed to vote. So that means that the members outside Europe, outside CEN, who decide that we accept that we have CEN lead on this. And that is some kind of acceptance that the BIM development worldwide is at the moment happening in Europe. We are the leading, and they trust us, and we have a very good relationship with China and everyone, actually, accepting this. We have quite many standards over these years from everything. It's not only the data model and so on, but it's all this. For those who have, we have tried to keep this an overview over all these standards, and this is, if you get this information on this link, we try to have this updated, and you see information of all the documents. What is developed in 442? What is developed together with SE13 in ISO? What is more like just outside us, GIS and everything that is useful that we are connected to? And this is growing all the time, and the core IFC standard is developed by Building Smart International. Yeah, so you can get more information here. Just very short connection to what we discussed here, seen from my side here, about what's happening in Europe. You all heard about this. Yeah, you need to see this before I start here. So, some kind of what I'm trying to say outside here, that Europe have this high-level goal on climate, nature, economic growth for all, and everything. And there is some strategies. Some of them is New Green Deal, circular economy. From this, you have the eco-design regulation, and you have also defined in the industry strategy, I guess. If I don't remember what they call the construction ecosystem. And they have a document they call it Innovation Wave. They have also it's a lot of reports and identified by the Commission that if you should really do something with the one thing with the construction industry, it has to be digitalized because it's far behind the rest of the industries. So and that was what we're doing here. And there has been a project, a digital building logbook. And we also have digital building permit, have a 2-year research project delivering today. And also from we have this construction product regulation that was mentioned earlier today, that is connected with VSPAR. That is quite interesting. And that was they're discussing in Working Group 12 at the moment, and you will hear more about this construction product, the digital product passport. And what I'm saying here that to digitalize this, they use the CEN 442 standards to make this digital construction ecosystem. So that is what we do. Everything else is coming elsewhere, but we make the digital standard, make this happen. And of course, the SPR, just to also mention today that they have set up a CEN Senelec joint working group 24. Making the DPP system, because that is for every product, except a few exceptions, a few done military equipment and so on, but for all of it. So it's a system that has been quite horizontal. But we have, from early on, been involved and set up a collaboration with this JTC 24. So I think we should settle to make us strong, so this will fit together the construction DPP with the rest of the DPP system will fit quite well together in the end. I really hope. And also this last one, which important from the last CPR, that actually in one of the article is mentioned without compromising interoperability with building information modeling. BIM. That is written in the law text. So that is so that's why this is important. So yeah, I think that was quite fast, and so if there is any questions, I will be here the rest of the day. So happy to answer it.
Thank you very much, Aitor, and thank you for inviting me to present at this workshop on the update that is happening to the EN ISO 19650 standard. Øyvind mentioned it in his introductory presentation, and this is the standard or set of standards that are about the information management process to enable everybody in the construction ecosystem to understand how to work collaboratively to manage and specify the right amount and right quantity of information to be delivered in support of design and construction or operation and maintenance of assets. I am the project leader for two of the parts that are currently being updated, and I'd just like to explain the work that is going on and some of the challenges that we are facing. So just to recap, the EN ISO 19650 parts 1 and 2 were first published in late 2018, and these two parts, as you can see from the diagram, set out the concepts and principles of information management in part 1, and then set out a detailed information management process for the design and construction activities, which we call the delivery phase of an asset, in part 2. Then 2 years later, we published part 3, which was the remaining piece of the jigsaw, which is the information management process for the longer part of the asset life cycle, which is to operate and maintain the asset when it's being used for its actual purpose. So these standards all fit together very neatly, hence the picture of a jigsaw. And they exist and are implemented within the context of broader standards, as you can see from the diagram, more generic management system standards for asset and project management, or for organizational and quality management. So the revision that is currently happening is on quite a long-term timetable. The work first started almost 18 months ago now, when ISO launched its systematic review. This is a regular 5-yearly cycle for all standards to be reviewed to make sure that they are still suitable, or to decide if they need to be revised or even withdrawn. So those reviews were launched automatically in late 2023, but because of the close relationship with the part 3 of the 19650 standard, we wanted to make sure that that was not left behind if any revision was approved. So we triggered a review of that at the same time, not quite the same time, but nearly. So that happened a few months later, and by June 2024, we had all of those reviews completed. We had the results in from the ISO committee members, and substantially there was a large call for the standards to be revised. And this, I think, was no surprise, that the standards were, well, I'll say quite revolutionary when they were published, and it has taken some time for people to become familiar with them and to know how to interpret them and use them. And so a lot of lessons have been learned over the last 5 or 6 years, which now we can use to try and improve the standards and make them easier and more logical to implement. So that was our first sort of result, was to have this revision voted for. And we held kick-off meetings in the ISO working group. So as Øyvind was explaining, the Vienna agreement, sorry, not convention, the Vienna agreement in ISO is how ISO and CEN collaborate together. And these projects for 19650 have always been led by ISO Working Group 13, but with incredibly close contacts and engagement with CEN TC 442. In looking at the revisions as we had those kickoff meetings, there were some significant recommendations from the review process. And one of the recommendations in particular was that it didn't really make much sense to have 2 parallel documents, Part 2 and Part 3, separately dealing with different parts of the asset life cycle, and that it would make more sense if we could combine those into a single set of requirements for information management, which would then apply to any activity that happens at any time during the development and operation and ultimately demolition or deconstruction of an asset. So we discussed this in the working group, and we concluded that this would be possible to do, or we hoped it would. And we formulated a proposal, which was that we would expand the scope of Part 2 of the standard. So rather than just covering the design and construction part of the life cycle, it would then apply across the whole life cycle and incorporate operation and maintenance activities, or be able to be used on operation and maintenance activities in a single document. And this meant that we were then able to refocus the Part 3 standard to be more helpful as an implementation guideline, which would then support the information management process by giving some guidelines for how the various requirements in Part 2 could then be interpreted. So we have this new sort of structure of the 3 parts. Part 1 remains as concepts and principles. Part 2 is the information management process. This is where the requirements are going to be put. And then Part 3 is an implementation guideline, or will be, we hope. And so the language that we are using in the 3 parts is shown there on the right-hand side. So using the typical standardization verb forms, it's only Part 2 that will have the requirements or the shall statements in it, the things that need to be conformed to. Part 1 is recommendation, so that talks about should do this or should do that, and the implementation guideline is also going to be recommendation or possibility for implementation, so it uses the words should and can. So this idea to restructure these 3 parts was approved by ISO TC 59 SC 13, which is the parent of our working group. So that gave us the green light to then go ahead. Moving on with the timetable of the revision that we are doing. So we've been working from that point in sort of September 2024, when that approval came through for the new structure of the 3 documents. We've been having a series of monthly working group meetings to develop an internal draft of all three parts simultaneously. This has not been a straightforward exercise, as I hope you can imagine. Developing standards collaboratively in an international arena is a challenging undertaking. Doing three of them simultaneously is 3 times as challenging. So we've had quite a lot to work with over the last 9 months as we've been developing the internal sort of working draft, work in progress of our new documents. But online meetings are wonderful. They make it much easier to have meetings, of course, but it's not always easy to have good discussions online. So we have started and we will continue to have some occasional face-to-face meetings where it's much easier to have, I think, rich discussions around a table. And the first one of these that we had in earnest was in March this year. We had a meeting alongside the CEN TC 442 working groups in March, which was specifically about these documents, and that was really helpful to get the sort of consensus as best we could around the table for the development of these drafts, because quite a lot is changing, as you might imagine, from restructuring the nature of the 3 texts. So that work has been going on. Sorry, I should have said I'm project leading on parts 1 and 3 of the new document, but my colleague from the UK, Paul Shilcock, is project leading on part 2. So he and I are working very closely together. It would simply be too much, I think, for one person to be doing all 3 documents. So it's really helpful that we have some extra resource here in the UK to help this work get done. As you might be aware, the structure of developing standards is very clearly laid out, and one of the early key milestones is to have a draft that the working group is content with, that then gets submitted and discussed around the technical committees that are involved. So this is called the committee draft stage, and we reached that point at the end of March this year, and we submitted drafts to be discussed around those committees. So that is the SC13 at ISO and TC 442 at CEN, and those reviews happened in parallel. And of course, there's a lot of overlap between the membership of those committees. So although we received a lot of comments, as you can see, from a good number of participating countries, not all of them by any means, we hope to get more participation in the next round of consultation. But we got a good response to those committee drafts. And now the job is for those comments to be discussed and reviewed and resolved, sorted, provide solutions for them within the working group 13. And this will enable us to develop the draft international standard documents going forward. So that is our next step in the work. So just to take a step back, what a couple of things that are falling out of this implication to restructure and to expand the part 2 document to cover the whole life cycle. This means that we will end up with a single set of process requirements. So this means for those of you who are familiar with ISO 19650 part 2, it is organized as a sequence of 8 large-scale information management activities, which are then broken down into more detail These are allocated to different members of the project team. Some of them fall to the client, usually called the appointing party, or someone who is acting in that capacity. Some of them fall to the lead designers and contractors, known as lead appointed parties, and some of them fall to the supply chain at large, who produce the information, called the appointed parties. And that is how the requirements in the process, which is collaborative between all those different groups, is explained in ISO 19650 Part 2 at the moment. But it is only done in the context of design and construction. And there are some different approaches that are needed when you are doing the same type of thing in sort of long-term asset or facility management contracts. And those are the things that are pulled out and explained in the Part 3 of the current standard. But pulling those two things together means that our process that we're developing, our information management process, has now got to cater to both those different communities. And so it is going to be a little bit more complicated than it has been in the past. That is one of the implications, and our job is to make that as easy a change for everybody to understand and work with as possible. There's also the case that the current Part 3 standard can be applied to what might be termed very small one-off activities during asset or facility management. For example, repairing a component that has become broken or needs to be replaced inside a building or inside an asset. These could be very short jobs that might only take a few hours to do, but there is still information that is generated as a result of them that needs to be managed, and it has to be done in a proportionate way so that the process does not strangle the economy of doing these small activities and make them simply too expensive to carry out. So that is another challenge that we have to try and overcome. And part of the way we will overcome this, we hope, will be in the implementation guidelines that we will be developing, we are developing. So we know that there are different types of what we call trigger event or activity or work activity or project that take place, and they need slightly different approaches, which we can explain. We know that there are different scales and complexities of work, or indeed different scales and complexities of the team involved, how many organizations there are, how much duplication of roles there is with one person. And those things we can explain as well in the implementation guideline. There are different forms of procurement that are used. And again, we don't want to get into the details of types of contract or pros and cons of things like that. But we can give some pointers to how the process can be applied to different approaches to procuring work in the built environment. And finally, we know that there are lots of cases where a single organization actually wears multiple hats. So they take on more than one role in the team. And so we need to explain how that works more clearly as well. So this gives us an opportunity, we hope, to clarify some of the challenges that ISO 19650 has uncovered over the last few years, and to improve the potential for implementation going forward. And that's been a really important role of the engagement that we have with the ISO working group and with the CEN TC 442, and all of the people who are involved in all of the CEN working groups who are in this space and working on these types of on this digitalization challenge. They have very valuable experience and insight into how we can improve the ISO 19650 standard as a baseline. So there are, apart from those sort of big items, there are some other things that we are trying to do in the revision as well. We are trying. We'll see how successful we are, but we're trying to simplify and clarify the terminology that we're using. I think many people would acknowledge that ISO 19650 has almost created a separate language, partly by necessity, but actually not always very helpful in the real world. And so we need to see if we can do anything to try and simplify that situation. There were some issues around the way that the part 1 document was structured, and we think we can put it together in a more logical sequence. So we've tried to do that. And the common data environment concept was one aspect which has generated lots of discussion and lots of debate. And we hope we can clarify some of the aspects of that concept in the revised documents. But in doing all of that, we want to try and retain as much consistency as we can with what has already been published, so that we don't end up with 3 completely new documents. That is not really the intention. We are supposed to be going through evolution rather than revolution. So that is the focus that we have in the work that we're doing. And as I said, we've now got to the stage where we have had the first sort of main circulation of a draft around people outside of the working group. And we have all of these comments now to discuss and to resolve. So that is going to be starting very soon. We have a meeting scheduled taking place in Italy next month. And following that, we will then be preparing the draft international standard documents over the next 5 or 6 months, second part of 2025. We have a meeting planned in October to finalize, hopefully, or nearly finalize those documents. And this is being held in Brazil. It's going to be part of the ISO SE 13 plenary. And our intention is that these draft documents will then be submitted to ISO at the end of November. And that is our next sort of deadline, because that then triggers the period of public consultation. So ISO does some work, and then we expect that the drafts will be circulated through national standards bodies in early 2026. Don't know exactly when that will be, but my hope is that it will be sort of February, March, April next year. And this is then the period when consultation across the whole of the built environment community can happen, organised and directed by each national standards body. So there will be some comments coming back from that process, and we will then be incorporating and resolving those comments in the next round of development. And we expect and hope, fingers crossed, that the revised standards will be published in late 2026, hopefully by the end of next year. So that is our expectation. It might all seem quite a long way away, and many of us, I think, will be familiar with the timescale of standards development. This is actually quite fast. So it took us much longer than this to do the first set of 19650 documents. So hopefully we won't take as long this time. And it will be in effect just over 2 years of actual work time from start to finish, which is not bad, I don't think. Anyway, I'm just going to finish by just putting up as a reminder, this is the project timeline that we're working to. You can see in the blue sort of band shading, that is the time that we've currently spent. This was screen grabbed from the ISO website a couple of weeks ago, so the today line is not exactly correct. but you can see the intended publication date at the towards the end of 2026. So we have quite a lot still to do and quite a lot of time still to cover. So on that note, I'd like to close and thank you very much for listening. And I'm not sure if there's any time now, but if there are any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. If there isn't any time now, then I will be around for the round table session, but it's difficult to participate online, I think. But if you have questions, please email me, and also please do participate in the public consultation in 2026 when that comes through. So thank you very much.
Now we have Sergio Muñoz from Building Smart Spanish chapter, who is also helping us sponsoring the event, and is the chair of TC4 for Tumiro Committee in Spain.
Good morning, everybody. So thanks for coming to this event organized by UNE and supported by Build Smart Spain. So we have switched our presentations, David and me, because sorry, I've arrived a little bit late. But I think that it would be nice to know exactly which is the approach of the change of the update of the ISO 19650 and how it's going to be improved, but at the same time to impact to many companies, some of you, for example, that are applying currently the existing standards. So the idea of my presentation is just to make a short introduction about ISO 19650. I think that probably most of you know a lot of the standards, so I think I will be quite be fast, giving more time for the round table that I think that will be more interesting for everybody. But just I want to give you a brief introduction. Okay. So just a few data from a typical project. So we can consider really small projects or big projects. So small projects, maybe there are 50 people with only 10 companies, but probably hundreds of documents, hundreds of requests for information. So a lot of exchanges, actions, and revisions. And if we talk about big projects, the numbers really grow a lot. So hundreds of people, many companies, different culture between the people and between the different companies. So another key point is to define well who is responsible of what. So it's very typical to try to say that that's not my responsibility, maybe yours, I don't know, of whom. And it's another point to fix. And so what do we want? So we want to have a single source of truth in order to be able to control the information, or we prefer to be controlled by many data not connected. So probably these 3 points are the most important that are trying to be solved by ISO 9650. So as you know, ISO 9650 is a set of standards which try to specify the information management processes in a project. Well, in the whole life cycle of an asset. In the current standards is added that only when BIM is used. And that's something that is been in discussion in the current update of the standards, because really in every stage of the whole life cycle, in every phase, there are information production, information exchange, information management. So the key probably is not if there are 3D models, the key is to improve how we are managing information. Well, a few key points from ISO 9650. So one of them is just to clarify exactly which are the responsibilities of each stakeholder. So as you know, all the stakeholders have different responsibilities, are classified by appointing party, lead appointed party, and appointed parties for every contract or for every appointment during the whole life cycle. So every stakeholder should know exactly which are their responsibilities. Another point is is needed to accord the needs and the requirements related to the standards that should be applied in a project. So we are talking about information standards, file naming, classification systems, level of information need, and that's really important to be agreed before to arrange the appointment or the project if we want really to collaborate in an effective way. Well, another point is regarding the management of the information in order to be more efficient. And the concept of common data environment, I think that introduced three very important points. And one of the points is to try to be more efficient through collaborative production of information. So if all the teams can be working in parallel, producing that kind of information. But it's really important to the quality control of the information. So to introduce several points to make this class detection or to analyze if the information which has been produced is really correct until we have ended this process. And the third point is regarding traceability. So we can keep all the information about when, who has produced the information, when has been exchanging, when has been published, when has been shared with other stakeholders. Well, I want to give you, because some of you are not from Spain and you don't know how it's been introduced or implement ISO 9650 in Spain, but I think that really is a standard with a big success in implementation in Spain. So we in BuildSmart, we did a survey the past year regarding how it's being implemented by the sector, by the companies, and more or less 25% of the people who participated in the survey told that didn't know nothing about the ISO 9650. 15% know what it is, but have not implemented yet. But we have almost 30% of people that have implemented it partially. Almost 30% are in process to become ISO 9650 certified. So because, as you know, at least in Spain, there are some companies that are reviewing the process of adoption and certifying that it has been correct and is being applied in projects, in real projects, in a good way. The 30% of the companies or the people who answered the survey were in the process. And 12% of the people are currently, of the companies, of these people are currently ISO 9650 certified. So if we add all this data, we can say that more or less 70% of organizations have implemented partially or totally ISO 9650 in Spain. So another point is regarding the maturity of the appointed parties, of the clients regarding ISO 9650. And if the clients are requiring the use of ISO 9650 in their tenders, in the projects. So in that case, so there are many clients that really are not evaluating the BIM capabilities or experience of the appointed parties during the tendering process. There is many things to improve. The majority, 60% more or less, asking or give a value, an added value in the tendering process if the appointed parties have BIM experience. But we are starting to ask for ISO 9650 implementation. So are starting to give value if the company in the tender process have already implemented or is certified and have previous experience. So it's not too much, only maybe 7%, but I think that this is the beginning and the numbers will grow in the future. To put in context too, I want to share with the people from out of Spain, because the others probably you know, that there is a mandate to introduce BIM in public tenders from the national Spanish government. So this mandate started the past year, 1st April in 2024. And as you can see, there are several aspects to consider. So there are several levels of the maturity of the requirements that are being increasing with different milestones. And there are the budget of the project should be higher than 5 million or 2 million to consider which is the level that should be applied in each one of these milestones. But what is exactly the meaning of its level of maturity in this case for the Spanish government? So this is a more detailed approach of this level of maturities. But you have to consider that there are requirements related to the processes, requirements related to the technology, requirements related to the capabilities about the people or the experience about the people, and are being increasing in the different milestones through the different levels. So for me, what is really important to share with you that ISO 9650 appears since the intermediate level that will be applied since the next 1st of October. So because in all the tenders, the information should be managed using the principles of information management of ISO 9650. So other aspects are including or added in the next levels, but we have in mind that since next October, many things should be applied in the public tenders from the national government of Spain. Well, it's true that I consider that the ISO 9650 standards are well explained. It's a great framework, but it's needed to give a support to adopt it. So for that, in many countries, there are some national annexes, or in some countries, there are some resources related or there to help to all the sector to implement it. So in Builder Smart Spain, we are really committed with ISO 9650, and we started some years ago to create several resources that could be useful for the sector to adopt it. So I want to give you just a few examples of something that we do. So one is just to make workshops in order to share our knowledge and our experience. So and how to implement it ISO 9650. So that's an example from a couple of days ago. So we organized in workshops in order to how to combine ISO 9650 and the Builder Smart standards, and we organized some team building activities. I see some people here that participated in that workshop. It's true that Builder Smart International have a program of certification that includes learning outcomes related to ISO 9650. So we are trying to share with the whole sector a basic knowledge about ISO 9650. So there are more than 25,000 people that are certified at international level currently. Of course, to develop some guidelines, some templates, supporting or facilitating the adoption. All of them, of those are in Spanish, of course. And we have some templates that are free for use, and everybody can download it from our website and use it. And finally, to end my presentation, just a few remarks regarding to why to implement ISO 9650. So, well, if we talk about the appointing parties, so what should be the benefits for the appointing parties? So on the one hand, so they expect to have a better information production in response to their requirements. So it's trying to have better requirements and as answer better information. That will increase predictability and achieving better business results. Of course, to have a life cycle vision, not only for each state separately, so having a global vision. And at the end, so trying to standardize all the requirements. It will allow to more suppliers, to more appointed parties to participate in the tendering process. So if you standardize that, it's more probably that more people could participate. Thus, they could increase the competitiveness. And on the other hand, regarding the appointed parties, so here are architectural and engineering firms, contractors, facility managers, for example. So for them, it's really important to improve the clarity of the definition of the processes, of the information required, of the responsibilities, in order to reduce misunderstandings. They have to increase to the efficiency and the collaboration. And finally, why not? That's it's an opportunity window. So currently is required is growing the requirement from the client, the ISO 9650 implementation. So I think that it's a good opportunity for many companies to become better than their other companies. And as I want to say, why not to do it? So we're trying to do the things better. Why not to try to do the things better? So from my side, I think that's all. Okay, so we are going to start our roundtable. So I think that is Javier Lozano from ADIF, Jose Carlos Rico. Okay, Peter Kompolsek, and Eloy Coloma. Probably this is the most important part of the event, from at least to me. So, so in order to know exactly how it's been applying ISO 9650 in the real world, because really I've explained it theoretically, and now let's see how it's been applying. So. Thank you for joining this roundtable about ISO 9650 standards. So we have tried to bring to this roundtable 4 different professionals representing different key perspectives. So we have a client on the one hand, is Javier Lozano from ADIF. So Javier Lozano is civil engineer and is deputy director for BIM and digital continuity in ADIF. So he's the responsible of the implementation of BIM in ADIF. ADIF is the railway operator in Spain. So we have an architect as a designer. So we have 2 architects, I know, hello, but he's representing the design stage, we can say. So it's Peter Kompolsek. So later we have Jose Carlos Rico from FCC. He's representing a big contractor firm. He's civil engineer too and head of the BIM management department in FCC. And finally, we have another architect, but he's representing more the consultancy firm that is supporting many companies in all the supply chain. Is Eloy Coloma from Coloma Armengol, and who is someone of the part of the comments that David has received. So that's okay. So I'm going to try to make a couple of questions to each one of the members of the roundtable. And finally, I have some general questions, but of course, when we started the general discussion, if you have something to add or to introduce in the discussion, it's really open, the discussion, so please do it. So I'm going to start with Javier as client, for example. So as I presented, and you know quite well, because ADIF is partially affected by the BIM mandate from the Spanish government. So you know that the BIM mandate from the Spanish government includes some aspects related to the ISO 9650. So which of these aspects are being implemented by ADIF currently, and which are expected to be implemented in the future?
Okay, thank you, Sergio. First of all, you may know ADIF is the railway administrator and also responsible for the traffic management. We started implementing BIM way before the government mandate was published, and we also focused in the BIM implementation, taking into account the ISO 19650 as the standards of reference. There's lots of documentation in the last years and in the recent years regarding BIM, but I think these standards were our main standards for as a reference how to implement BIM. So whether the BIM mandate from the government focus on the 19650 for the, and you said it, for the medium level of the plan, we already focus on the different phases, and we also focus on the different requirements that were set mainly in these standards. So just because I think the most interesting part is talking about some figures and talking about, well, how has this impacted ADIF? ADIF is very regulated. We have a quite unique set of standards, procedures inside our company, more than 1,000 documents in our quality system. And just an example, when we started to implement BIM and to study what the ISO and BIM could do for us, we finally managed to develop more than 200 improvements into our own documents of the quality system, mostly regarding design and construction phases. So I think that's the best figure I can say about does the ISO and BIM improves our process? For sure, more than 200 proposals for improvements in our documents. So that's, for example, our experience. And as I said, whether the ministry or the BIM plan focus on the 19650, we in ADIF, because we started before, we have managed to right now establish a new set or a new framework of work thanks to BIM that is for sure improving our processes, and we are quite happy about the impact and this let's say this process that we have improved. And just to finish with this part, there is something I always like to say, that all our colleagues that are in the design and the construction phase, also we wanted to focus also on the whole asset life cycle, but it wasn't possible. You have to go step by step. So we focus first on design construction. What our colleagues says is that the first BIM initiative, project, construction, whatever, is hard. You know, it's a lot to take into account, and it's kind of a new mindset you have to apply to your processes. But once you have the first experience, there's no coming back, and it brings us a lot of value. So yeah, I think that experience, it shows that we are in the correct wave of the digitization of our sector. No?
Oh, thank you, Javier. I think that ADIF really is a good example regarding the implementation of ISO 9650, because probably it's one of the, I don't know if the only one public client in Spain, but maybe not too many, that provides a CD for production information to all the appointed parties. So the most part of clients just give a point to receive the published documents, but not give this CD for production. And in case of ADIF, you give the option to all the stakeholders to do it.
Yeah, for us that was very important. We knew at the time in 2016, 2017, and so on, that of course we could set our requirements in order to procure with these requirements, and we could get all these deliverables, new deliverables, thanks to BIM. But the point is to implement BIM inside our company, to know what to do with that, to have the people trained in order to review these new documents, the models, the BIM execution plan, and so on, and of course to have a CD. A CD because we, in the design construction phases, we didn't have any, let's say, central source of information, and we knew that would bring a lot of value to us. So not only we implement and deploy our CDE, but as you said, every company is compelled to work in our CDE. It's mandatory in every contract, and we have more than 300 companies right now working in our CDE. More than 5,000 people working in the CDE with our requirements and so on. So from a standardization point of view, this has been a great success. And I want to focus in the word standardization. Before, every company that worked for us, of course, they had these deliverables set in the requirements of the tender, but the way they deliver the information, the way that information was reviewed, the way that we communicate with them and so on was completely different in each project, in each contract. And right now, everything is completely standardized. So that was our goal, and we have delivered.
Just to add something, your CD is mandatory, not only for contracts that BIM models have to be produced. It's mandatory for contracts that they have not to produce BIM models, but they have to produce information following your standards.
Yeah, it's mandatory, as you said, because we know that before the BIM plan, the national BIM plan was approved, there were a set of, let's say, contracts that they didn't need to model. They didn't need to produce models, but we wanted to have this centralized managing documentation inside the CD, whether they were working as always with CAD drawings. So, but we thought that it was a good idea just to manage all the information inside the CD. Also, as you said, we didn't have any model production, and that has been also a great success. Even the little companies that work for us in this kind of contracts, they have adapted to work in the CD, and I think people are quite happy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Javier. So let's continue with Pichel. So now we come from ADIF, that is a really big company with many big projects and contracts. So my first question for you is that, do you think that the standard is geared more toward large-scale projects, or can it realistically be applied to smaller ones as well?
Well, the huge projects benefit most. Why? Because in the huge projects you have an asset owner who is owning most of the projects for a long time. So he has a quite high interest in receiving information, and that's adding value to its asset. If you talk about smaller projects, the way of doing projects according to 19650 helps the design team, let's say, the appointed parties more than the appointing party, because the appointing party may not be so interested in the information because it's just a one-time thing, you know. And so if you are as a architect used to work, to collaborate and start the collaboration according to 19650 or BIM in general is making things easier. If you break the barriers, you know, the most important thing is that the people learn that sharing is important and not hiding back and delivering like it was before. So this is one of the most important things, and this happens in small projects. You work better if you share, and if you say, okay, this is not perfect. That's a shared state. Accept it and just give your comments, and we get better as a team. And because you always, as an architect, you have a structural engineer, you have MEP, you have clients, and so you have to discuss your improvements, the way you think. And so this is why the thinking according to 19650 is valuable for small projects as well as for bigger ones.
Do you have something to add, Eloy, maybe?
No, I fully agree with you about the mindset, okay? Because it's not only implementation the ISO, maybe the ISO is a technical document and talk about processes and information management and these kind of things. But the most important thing is to implement a change in the mindset of the people. This is a common telling thing. But for that, it is necessary to understand what are the main principles behind the information management. And implement them in the appropriate scale, because it's not the same, the small projects and the big projects, but the general problems are the same. The problems of having the client outside is the same. The problem of hearing the development of the things for keeping it at the last moment and have a huge revision at the end is common, is the same in small and in big projects. So in my opinion, this ISO mindset can be implemented in any kind of projects, but with a different way, with a different scale of impact maybe. But this is my point.
Okay, so let's continue with the construction phase, José Carlos. So I think it's a good example that in Spain there are mainly contractors and engineering firms that are certified by ISO 9650. I don't know how many, maybe around 50 companies. I think that it's a good number. One of them is FCC, your company. So how has your organization approached the implementation and the certification process? So really has been difficult. With what has been the main barriers and obstacles?
We started back in 2012. We, as a general contractor that is working internationally, started to receive the first tenders with BIM requirements. At that time, it was British Standard 1192, the one that was ruling the markets where we were working at, Nordics, UK and Ireland, Middle East. At that time, we appreciated the need to start introducing a system internally, but let's say there was very broad time in the Spanish market to make a lot of investment. So we waited for a while. It was then when we started to gather all those international experiences. Back in 2019, when the ISO was released and translated into the UNE standard, we decided to go for the systematic that was only a transposition of the previous British standard, mostly with some changes, of course, but more or less we have everything there. We just needed to make it work properly. So it was a process of 2 years that we started that internal review. We wanted to work with a solid foundation, and it was what we had very clear to set a full standardization, not only as per ISO, as per internal standards. That as general contractor we have several projects. We have to have a very, very, very open framework for and then we decided to opt for the certificate in 2022, and we are renewing it now. So what have been the obstacles? I think that the procurement system in Spain is
very complicated. We have 50% internal, local, and 50% international. I always say that as much as we are in the digitalization in Spain will be our company, because abroad most of the major contracts that we are involved in are digital. So Spain is the one that is ruling our internal digitalization. So this is the turning point. No, 2022, we set the foundations. We found that the procurement system is not easy for us. The sector is not is a very slow motion sector, let's say that, and it's not only in Spain. It's generally speaking, but we needed to do something, and we went for that standardization, for training, for making it very plain, translating what was the standard to our construction guys. No, because we are the guys with the white helmet, go on site and talk about MIDP, states, statuses. It's we have to lower it down. No, it's very important that people it's not only trained, it's also specifically trained in what it's needed. No, so we need a way of translate those standards for them. We have that foundation, and of course the systems, CD implementation. We have over 100 projects, not only sites, also bidding processes in our CDE, and I think that those are the main points.
And adding something, how your own appointed parties, your subcontractors, accepting this way of working?
I think that the supply chain in Spain, excuse me, I'm referring to Spain because it's that thorn in my flesh. We have some slightly broken chains or not so fixed chains in our supply chain. No, sometimes it's the client, the appointing party, sometimes it's the contractor or the lead appointing party, but there is a gap also when in the design bid build we receive information from the designers, let's say that. No, for us it's very important as we work in a DBP procurement type to receive the right information, and it's very difficult because not all the supply chain, all the designers are used to work in bid. No, so we are not reaching a detailed design, LOD 300, let's say that. Sometimes, so we have to rework the models, and it involves a lot of resources if we want to do the things properly. And when drawings are to be generated from the models, that is the way that we would like to go for. Sometimes it's very difficult because we need people that can not only model. It's young people. Modelers are really young. They don't have the experience of construction. So it's very difficult to gather a team of modelers that could replicate the needs of a detail or technical design for construction.
Okay, thank you so much. So let's continue with Eloy. So in your experience that you have been working in some projects that have implemented 1950 and many projects that have not implemented it. Yeah. So
sure.
Which do you think that are the main difference or the main benefits from 1950, or the main barriers maybe? So the different regarding workflows and regarding outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it has a huge difference. It was maybe here.
That's okay.
Yes, okay, it's okay. For contextualism, I have been working implementing BIM and these kind of things for almost 20 years. And for me, it was an after and before the ISO, especially the ISO 1965 team. And the main improvement, in my opinion, is the implementation explicitly of a common data environment. This is not only because it improves a lot the information management, but especially because it provides a source of truth, centralized data. This is information model for all the people to allow all the people to take decision with a tangible source of information. So everybody can make better decisions because everybody knows what was the information that was the source of that decision in each time, no? In any time. And from this point, all the things, for example, the coordination that was very hard to do. Okay, yes, no, sorry. All the, for example, the coordination, the multidisciplinary coordination, much better, I think. Has been improved a lot because in the past we have, for example, teams that work together, building team models, for example, and then they make class detection and these kind of things, and they found a lot of errors in the class detection analysis. And now with the ISO process, they have learned, or it's possible to train them in order to have conversation prior to take decisions and avoid these classes, avoid this problem for the very beginning through a very close coordinated, not only based on the information model, based on the conversation that they have when they make the recurrent and collaborative meetings for talk about the project or the construction process using the information that is in the common data environment. This is one of the main improvements. And another one maybe is that it clarifies the responsibility of the appointing party. And we realize that the appointing party is not, or usually is not a single guy, okay? It's not the client, it's a constellation. Maybe with lucky or not, it's an organization, but in other contexts, there is a bunch of organization. And in the ISO, and especially in the ISO that this has been improved these days, it comes a lot that the appointing party has a huge, clear responsibility in the information management process. Instead of setting the requirements at the beginning and stepping back and wait passively that everything will go well, it requires a more close participation of the appointing party in the process of decision making. And I think that this is very positive. And for example, this is regarding the responsibility that the appointing party has to provide the common data environment, because at the end of the day, they have the responsibility of manage the asset information. So they need the common data environment. I know that not always happens, but this is a very, very important thing. And finally, and regarding this last point, the other improvement for me is that the ISO puts the asset in the center of the information management. And this gives us a final purpose of doing the things that we do, because we have a thing to think about. This is not the project, this is not the specific contract that we have, it's the asset itself. It's the asset during all its life cycle. And for me, this vision is very important, and it's a good contribution of the ISO.
Okay, good to hear that. I want to make now a question for all of you, so you can give your point of view. Is the ISO 9650 written for technicians or for lawyers? So do you find it practical in daily project work? So some people say that it's really complicated, or it's just the language, or why now we are thinking to update trying to clarify or simplify some things. So that's
Yes. Yes, I need to, as I said before, to translate it into plain language, to be clear to the people that even for us, for technical people, is difficult to understand. I won't mean lawyers. I think lawyers are a little bit aside of this, but even for technical people is difficult to manage, and there could be different interpretations about how to deal with some parts of the standards, no? And when we opt for the certification, you can discuss with with the consultant, and I think it's so open that different interpretations could be done, and we need to lower it down to earth, no, a little bit.
That's one aspect. And the other is that the 19650 interacts with all the contractual situations of projects of an asset. So the lawyers are part of the game, so you can't get rid of them. And it is important that you get a clear and stable rule set inside an institution, like if you're railways or something, where you have many projects that you have the same aspect and the same quality that you receive, and then you have the rules that's behind that you are according to the tender processes and everything, that you're not discriminating, and so on and so on. So there's a lot of law involved in everything we do nowadays, and the 19650 now really affects the contractual situation that you have as an architect, as an engineer. And so that's why it's especially tricky to get it done right. But if you have it, you have a very clear schema that you can use for many other projects. So that's like a work at the beginning. And if you have done it, if you succeeded, then you can really go and have a good fate for the future.
Yeah, about this, I fully agree that terminology sometimes is not very well, let's say, implemented. We already have laws, we already have processes, and the terminology isn't what we needed to fit in the current processes. And because it we had to make a decision about changing some terminology, and we decided not to change our own terminology in our own processes, and of course in our laws that's very complicated to do. So sometimes if someone see the 19650 and say our processes and say, okay, why isn't the same? Why isn't the terminology the same? Because it couldn't be at the time, and it won't be at every time. But that's not the point. The point, of course, is that all the effort that can be put into, let's say, making more simple the new standards that are reviewed right now, I think is going to be for the best, no? For the rest of the implementing of the ISO and implementing BIM. And just as an example, for example, I don't know if everybody that read the first time what information should go to the state of archived did understand what was that about. I mean, just an example. And for example, in part 2, if you see all the phases that are in the part 2 of the ISO, of course, we knew how to design, how to construct, how all the phases are, but sometimes we don't call the same. Or the subactivities and so on. That's not a problem for us, hasn't been, because we saw the ISO also not only as a guideline, also as an inspirational kind of document. Framework, exactly. Just to start thinking and start collaborating and start talking with other areas, for example, of ADIF, in order just to, okay, do you know that your process is improvable? Okay, we are going to start talking. This is our reference, this ISO. So read it, please. So it's a start. And yeah, we saw it also an inspirational kind of document.
Yeah. In my opinion, the ISO is for our hires and for technicals, but also is for operators and also is for administration people, and it's for everybody. Okay, this is the point. But the thing is that in some cases, or in most of the cases, must to be landed to the language of and the interest of each of the participants. Okay, it's not the same the interest of an architect. It's not the same the interest of an operator. Okay, so the language is very technical. It's some cryptic. In some cases, it's not perfect current. So it must be interpreted by expert if you want, and then landed and localized it to any participant of the whole process, of the whole value chain.
So I think that we need some people from the marketing department maybe to adapt the language to every set of people. So we're receiving some questions from the audience online too. So one is related to the common data environment. So probably is one of the best points introduced by ISO 9650, the concept in general of the common data environment. But it's true that we have to implement it through solutions. So we have seen the example of ADIF that is providing CD for production, information production, not only as a appointing party. So, but in many cases, we can consider that there is not only one solution of CDE in a project. There are a set of solutions. Maybe when the lead appointed party are using one, but the appointed parties are using others. So how this could be managed, really, this kind of situation, or it should be mandatory to have only one, like the Lord of the Rings, only one ring, so only one solution of CD for everybody, or not. Really, it should be more flexible in order to everybody can use their own environment to make some things, but giving some points, milestones to connect, to share, exchange information. Someone of you?
Of course. Yes. It's working? Yeah. I think that the issues that we have with the common data environment subject is are a consequence of the state of maturity of the sector. Okay, we are in the state of maturity of digitalization, generally speaking, that, for example, has the consequences of most of the most important part, that is sharing information and storing them in a common data environment, is in the market managed with private firms, okay, software developers. And this make hard for the sector to share one or the same common data environment for the life cycle of the asset by the appointing party. That was the perfect situation. Okay, the appointing party having the common data environment and having the governance over them during all the cycle. Okay, I am talking about decades. Okay, this with the solutions today is hard to face that. Okay, it's only temporarily, in my opinion. It's only temporarily, but it's hard. No, so. For me, the best way is to have an appointing party with its own common data environment. For me, it's more consistent. The problems become when there is more than one appointing party. And the other thing that we can do is to set up methodologies to synchronize the contents between different common data environments with a very clear process of synchronization, or a very clear process of transport, or transport the information from a common data environment for project, for example, to the common data environment that is going to be used in construction phase, and the common data environment that is going to use in the operational phase. Okay, so I think that altogether must to work very hard in processes to take out the information from one common data environment, that is a constellation of software in some cases, to another. What is the point here? That for the current state of maturity, this is hard to do, because I said maybe maybe all or almost all the solutions in the market doesn't allow completely to make a bulk download to the standard. There is not a standard for information model itself to make them after a bulk upload to another one. This is not possible today. You must do some things. You can address and you can mitigate this issue. It's not impossible to do manually, but it's not solved. This is my point.
So, no. I think that points. Maria has a question. So you can see the importance of the information manager role in that point, really. So someone really caring about all of this. So Maria from the audience.
Thank you for sharing in the first place. Of course, I think we all agree about the CDE stuff. That's the core of everything. But I have one question, I think especially for Javier, though you stepped along some of the things I'm going to ask. I don't understand that bulk download. By the way, we can chat about that. Why do you want to download all the shit you have in the CDE? I don't know why. I don't think you need to, but that's a second part of the question. So the question is, for the appointing party, the work in progress state, like S1, S2, S3, it's not your S1, S2, S3. So if you force your contractors to use your CDE, what happens with the difference between their state of information and your state of information?
Yeah, well, first of all, in our example, or in our case, is that we do not force any supplier to work in our city. Okay, we let them do it if they want. Okay, but we don't force it. What we do, of course, is set a complete set of requirements to work with our city, and it's in the tendering requirements, so they have to comply with if they want to be paid. So the point is that we do it that way because we think it's the correct way. Of course, we don't want to mandate anybody how they work in their home, but we want a very organized home in ourselves. Therefore, they have their own space if they want. Usually, they do not work. The work in progress is not in our CDE. I mean, I think there is 100% of the cases that they prefer to work at their home, in their city, whatever they want to work. But the delivery phase, of course, is complying with our requirements. So when we deployed our city, we talk about this. What was going to be the percentage of organizations or companies that are going to work in our city at this time in our city, from the side that they have the work in progress there? None of them. That's because everybody wants to work in their home. So yeah, it's not about forcing anyone to do it nothing in their home. It's about organizing ours.
But should it happen, how would you cater with that? Different states of information.
Well, that's not our business. I mean, they have to comply with our requirements. They can work whatever they want, but they knew for sure, how they have to deliver in our city, So that's the point. I mean, we want everything to be very organized, and we ask them also to explain in the BIM execution plan how they're going to work. And of course, the BIM execution plan are going to be approved at one point. So there is no problem at all about this. Because of that, because there is a BIM execution plan, because there is a set of requirements regarding our city, so everything is working.
Go ahead.
I fully agree. And I had one project with two major clients, and they had both their CDEs over years. They could not talk to each other CDE-wise because these were closed systems. So what I say is what we need is open CDE systems that are able to exchange information with third parties, and this is why we on a standard level are trying to get a standard for an API that those CDEs can really talk to each other, because a CDE is a long-lasting thing, as long-lasting as a life cycle of an asset. So we are talking about not like a software. We are talking about a tool that's evolving, that's changing over the years. Because when we talk about CDE now, compare it to what we talked about 3 years ago, that's a big difference, because we developed so much. And I think that's the important thing, that we get open CDEs, that we can really exchange information at any point, or pull and push information as we need it. And you as a client have a premier position, because you can say, okay, that's the delivery. I'm not interested in how you produce. But we had another project where we were working voluntarily on a CDE that was provided by one of the appointed parties, and they said, okay, we provide it for the rest of the group. And there was one decision once that has to be done, and the client said it will take about 4 weeks to get the decision, because it's a complex process. And we had the CDE and said, let's try with the CDE. After 3 hours, we had the solution, because everyone was seeing what was interesting for him, and the client could see it, and so we could make a qualified decision. And I think that's the important thing, that you provide information, that everyone has access to the information, that you can share it, restrict it on the other hand, of course, and that you can swap it from one CD to another one, because we have the situation that we have different CDEs in long time projects.
I would like to bring some light to some use cases to this. First of all, with ADIF, we have very good experiences in exchange of information in national railway projects. Our information management team of the railway division is very happy, because they are being able to be certified in ISO 9650 soon, because of the clarity of the requirements and the needs that the people on site is demanding for exchange information with them, and we are improving that process. But it's not so easy abroad. Let's say that, for instance, in Canada, we have an ecosystem in a project of 5 CDs. We have the DJB CD, the CGB bin CD, the appointing party bin CD for informal submissions bi-weekly. We have DMS for formal submissions, and we have to exchange information with their DMS. So at least 5 CDs, apart from other Microsoft staff that is behind for sure. So how do we cater with that? A key is the information manager, of course, a digital lead that have the ring for rule them all. Connectors are a way of exchange information, but they are not always feasible for implementing in quickly. They are not cheap, some of them, no. But the only way to ensure traceability of information is having data, a good MIDP that could hyperlink the right information and access them by the information manager and the rest of the team that needs the right access to those information. With BI is the only way that we have found to easily get to that right information.
Okay, we have just a couple of minutes before to end, and we have I think there are 2 questions that we have received. So one of them is more related about how to improve or increase the maturity of the appointing parties, defining their integration requirements. So you're not the case, probably, Javier, but there are many appointing parties that just ask for being deliverables and are not defining well information requirements. So how to engage them, how to teach them. So maybe you, Eloy, can give us a couple of tips.
Yes, surely. I have been working with, for example, public administration or public appointing parties from science 5 years ago, more or less. So here the point is there is two sides of the coin. No, one of the coin is the communication of the meanings, changing, making a lot of pedagogy about changing the mindset, okay, of the appointing parties. This is one of the most important things because we usually make a mistake thinking that it's enough implementing a framework. We need to implement a framework, but we need to implement a different mindset, okay? And we have, for example, some contradictions when a public client contract a supplier, a provider that has they require a high level of technical knowledge for being able to design and build a bridge, for example, and at the same point they think that they are not going to be able to use a common data environment. Okay, this is incorrect. Okay, so one of the point is to change the mindset, to communicate a lot. I do a lot of institutional activities about divulgation. Okay, about that, and the another thing is to work all together with them, working about what are their needs, because here the point is not to implement the ISO because it's necessary. The point is to look for what are the opportunities to improve their process and the life of the people inside the organization. And from that information, use the ISO and other things as a tool for having a real benefit for the people that is implemented that. And I think that this is usually forgiven. Okay, forgiven no. Forgiven no. Forgotten, sorry for my English, bad English. Okay, because we focus a lot to implement things and not about what are the benefits of doing that. And we need to work from that point and then implement the other things that we want to do.
Yeah, I think that
This is my advice.
You don't have to forget that because the objective is to build better.
The objective is to build better, but the final objective is to improve the life of all the people.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is the point.
Yeah.
The workers, the technicians, the final users, this is the point. And for doing that, we need to build better.
Okay, I'm afraid that we are out of time. So we have now the coffee break. Please, big
would be used downstream in value chain. This is a key question and a key idea that is very important. And that introduces the concept of interoperability. I said the question. And that is also a very important idea. We can later speak about how is difficult to implement this concept in the DPP. And I think that DPP is transversal. I think is very important because it could be the gateway, the trigger to truly be effective all the innovative aspects of the DPP. We need digitalization of all this new amount of information, and it's essential. We have also quite experience in declaring environmental performance. It's only some questions that could be remain to clarify by the European Commission because, for example, the worst case approach or the best balance or something like that. But when it comes to DPP, the uncertainty is high because, first of all, the DPP system is not fully defined. And we are looking forward to Oscar to providing us some information this morning on that. And the second question is that we have information from the DPP into a container, a standardized container, that is, it could be readable by human and machine. Is what all of you are working on. You are working on very hard on that, but the standards are not yet ready. So we have to speak this morning about the map that presented Owen and what is the standards we can use if we want to create a DPP for a construction product like cement, in my case. So it's my honor to introduce the speakers. First, I would like to welcome to Oscar Nieto, who is policy officer of the European Commission, ensuring a scientific and consistent technical approach of this package that is very, very important, not only a political view of these aspects. He holds an engineering degree with a focus on structures and materials, and has also an extensive experience of sustainability assessment and LCA. And I think that their view with the perspective, the regulatory perspective, is great for us this morning. Joining us as well is Sven Schulze. Sven is a prominent figure in the field of building information, modeling and digital construction, Group Vice President, Research in Co-Builder, convener of the DC 442 Working Group 12, project leader of ISO 23387, and expert in many standardization groups and activities. We also welcome to Martin Srek, a leading expert from the Norwegian Building Authority. He's the past convener of the working group 1 in the GTC 24, where he leads the development of digital product passport in the site of SPR. I think that we can speak about that, the SPR site and the CPR site this morning also. And finally, we have Aitor Aragon, and he holds an civil engineer, currently with deep expertise, among others, in LCA and digital twins. So let's go to the presentations.
Hello, good morning. It's a pleasure being with you. I will start telling you what happened last week. So last week there was a meeting in the commission, in the unit dealing with construction, but also other units. They call it a strategic meeting about construction. And they said, we need somebody that knows about the CPR. So you go there, and if there is something about the CPR, you reply. So we had a meeting with people from also DG and other parts of the commission. There were a lot of discussions about digitalization, about reduce carbon emissions and environmental impact of construction, circularity. One of the big topics was related to the affordability of housing, how to reduce the price, also the availability of materials, the problems with trade. So we had plenty of discussions about how the construction sector is going to work in future. And all the time I was just listening, and somebody said at one point how the CPR can help us to do something. And my reply was the following: we cannot really decide anything. We are not really promoting or deciding anything. We can try to make it feasible and make sure that when you establish a goal, we all speak the same language and we assess it with the same way. The best example is environmental product declarations and the global potential of buildings. Everybody has a plan. We need to go for this decarbonization of buildings. There is a directive for that. It will be implemented. Everything is ongoing. And what is the role of the CPR? Deliver information to do the calculation and make it reliable and really work in practice. Because if we have very ambitious goals, but we are not speaking the same language, we in the end will not achieve our goals, and we also discourage everybody in the construction chain. Because instead of focusing on the final goal, increase the circularity, increase the competitiveness, we will focus on trying to agree on some elements or just blame the others for not doing the thing whatever in the same way. And I think on this is not only applicable to the technical issues, this also is applicable to the digitalization. So if we manage to create a system that is very reliable and we have a common technical language, but there are discrepancies in the way we exchange this data, how digitalize it, on what level we have in different kind of bodies, we will not succeed in our goals. So in practice, the CPR is an enabler. It's something that will facilitate all the process. It does not deliver anything by itself, but we hope that with the implementation of the CPR, by creating this common technical language, this internal market, through the CE marking, the digital product passport, and all the elements that we have in our regulation, we will manage to really make our goals feasible and also faster and efficient. So that's the goal. And also another important point is that the CPR, and this is something that we have sometimes discussions internally, oh, we need to do this. Can the CPR help? It depends. We cannot do a lot because we are only regulating construction products placed on the market, which means that in practice, if you want to have threshold limits for the CO2 emissions of new buildings, the CPR will not help. This is a national issue. It is regulated also in the EPBD, the Energy Performance of Building Directive. But we, in the CPR, we can make sure that if you want to do this calculation, you take the data and the data is reliable and you don't need to really search for it or use data that is not reliable or whatever. And this example of the CO2 emissions is just one example because we have fire performance, technical performances, acoustics, thermal properties of the product, water permeability, a very, very long list of information, of characteristics that are regulated. And what we want to make sure is that all this information will be clear. And once it is in the regulatory framework, it is available for everybody. And if we need an update, we do it with the same framework. And there is no discussion about the details. We discuss about the goals and how to implement it. And in this sense, the regulation is very strong in one point. If a regulator needs information from the products, they cannot impose this obligation directly to the manufacturer. They cannot set in the national law, you need to deliver this or that. They need to tell the Commission, we need this information and we integrate it into the European system, in the European standards. So it's a kind of enhanced standardization system in which we not only have European standards, but also the European standards need to deal with all the requirements that are needed. So that's a bit how it works. It's quite strong. It's very complex because we need to collect all the needs, put them all together in the standards, and make sure that they are available to the customers. But the added value is that in the moment this information is there, and everybody knows that it's there, everybody can agree, and they can really focus on how to use the information from the products and focus on the construction, the design, or the other elements that are part of the construction value chain. So in practice, the regulation establishes a strong obligation to manufacturers that are covered by these harmonized standards to deliver this declaration of performance and conformity, which is a digital document that is based on the standards and some legal acts and really establish the baseline. This is what everybody agreed. And these documents, together with the general product information and instructions for use and safety information, are two documents that are in the digital product passport that will give you really all the information you need from the point of view of the manufacturer. What it is there, what you find in a declaration of performance and conformity. The first product that will have the digital product passport probably will be cement in standards, because we have yesterday was the end of the vote for the standardization request for cement. I'm not sure if it was approved, but I think so. And what we have done in the standardization request, so the document that will be used to draft the standard, is to already identify the essential characteristics which are really the information that all manufacturers in Europe will deliver. And the added value is that we have the same terminology, the same assessment methods, the same units, everything is clear. This is a property of cement, and this is how you have to declare this information. And this applies also to classes, to some limitations. So part of it is already there because we have standards already, some harmonized, some not harmonized. So nobody is asking for a cement with a compressive strength of 45 because this is not what we have. But there are a lot of characteristics and elements that are not clear. And we have some national requirements and some elements that need to be clarified and agreed. This is the common technical language. We all agree on the same terminology. And the legal, this is really the point where you have the legal value. What you declare is there. You are responsible of what is there. And the customer is also really able to check this information. But if there is a problem and the product delivered what is expected, this was not the failure of the manufacturer. If it fails, it's the manufacturer. If not, it's not the manufacturer. But there is a clear borderline. There is no discussion. And this is very important because in the moment this is digitalized, it will really clarify and improve the situation. This is already something that we have been experiencing because it was already like this in the old CBR, in the old regulation. But what is also important is that the declaration is a very long list of characteristics. And something that should be clear is that having a very long list of characteristics doesn't mean that the manufacturers will need to declare, assess, and declare all the characteristics. The regulation is flexible and it only gives you the framework to declare whatever is needed. So if in a country you need some characteristics, you declare them. If they don't need it, you don't declare them. So it's not a fit-for-all solution. It does not force manufacturers to assess and declare a very long list. You will only be requested to declare what is going to be requested by your customer. If you don't know, you may need to assess and declare more, but in a lot of situations, you know what are your markets. So it's a tool that is flexible enough, gives a common technical language, but also does not force you to do a kind of extra work. You know your market and you decide how far you want to go with the declarations. Always having in mind this idea that what you declare is your responsibility. And where is the digital product passport entering into the picture? In the old CPR, we had this declaration of performance in websites. How it was working? It was working well. It was a PDF, usually a PDF. You had these documents in the market, and customers were downloading them or keeping them, and it was part of the documentation. The question is, was this information used in practice? It depends. Not always. The problem with a PDF is that you have a document and you need a person that really transfer this content into the real information that you have in your document. We started already a digitalization process to facilitate machine readability of this information. But the problem is that digitalization is not just, is a means, it's not really something that it can be done in any situation. So what we are doing is, first, having a clear list of essential characteristics, so facilitate that this list is very well established, and then digitalize it in a harmonized way at European level. And then we will get the benefits. And the approach will be that in the digital product passport, the information will be machine readable, and you can develop tools to read this information that will be always using the same language and the same structure, and you will not need to create additional layers or additional discussions with the supplier about the data. You will know how the data is delivered. There is also a legal value for this data that you receive, and then you can implement your own system in your own construction process. When it will be implemented, when we will have a delegated act, I will explain a bit later, but we are expecting that the first standard entering the new CPR by 2027, cement, probably windows and doors will slowly already have a digital product passport. We are now discussing how it works, and Espen will speak a bit later about it, because we need to make sure that this process of digitalizing and making the information available in the digital product passport works efficiently. You see 2 years, 2 years is nothing. You know, in the standards, 2 years, we said that before, is just. And for the Commission, 2 years also for a regulation on the delegated act is we are already late. So we have already, we should have already a draft or something. So, but in any case, we are really committed to deliver a system that will be workable by 2027. And in practice, for the standardization request for cement, we were already working on the idea of digitalization to have really an approach that works with the digitalization. How it will work in practice? In practice, the data that is going to be delivered by the manufacturer in different digital documents will be connected to the product through a data carrier, and there will be a centralized registry where you will have the data carriers and will have the links to the different documents in the declaration of performance and conformity. There are 3 options. You will have the slides, but I will focus on the option 2. So, because this is probably the option that we will select. We were discussing what was the best approach. So in practice, a manufacturer will assess the product, draft the declaration of performance and conformity, will give this data to a digital product passport service provider. The digital product passport service provider will create an interoperable file that will be stored by the DPP service provider, and it will be connected to the centralized registry of the Commission. So if I'm buying a product, I scan the QR code of the product, and this QR code goes to the documents that are stored in this DPP service provider. And I can already take the data directly and use it, or I manage it in the way I want. So this is how it will work. We are also discussing that maybe some manufacturers will be DPP service provider themselves, so they will host their own data, but they will need to fulfill certain conditions. What is the added value? The added value is that in the moment you have a product, you automatically have the data. And the data includes not only the technical performance, includes the manufacturer, includes the legal information, and potentially includes also fulfillment of other legal acts at European level. So it's really a way to solve the problem of getting access to data from the manufacturers. And the approach that we have will only work, and I will just go, this is the summary of the options and pros and cons. This, you see the option 2 with this DPP service provider seems to be the best. And this will only work if we have a data dictionary, or in the eco-design they call it repository. That is really where we have all the concepts that are used in the CPR, very clear and properly designed. The products, the list of characteristics, what are the limitations, what are the different elements. This data dictionary will be available, so when anybody is developing BIM tools, they will have the possibility to just access the data dictionary, and they will know how we define the products, how we define the characteristics, how we assess compressive strength, and there will not be any discussion about what are they going to receive from the manufacturer. So you see, we are very focused always on the input side, on the manufacturer side, because we really are regulating only this part. The DPP is a batch of documents. The main one is the declaration of performance and conformity, where you have the essential characteristics, when you have the technical information. There is also instructions for use and safety information, which is for the consumers mainly, or if you have doubts about how to install the product. So it's not so much machine readable information, but also human readable information. The technical documentation that will only be accessible to market surveillance, to facilitate also that market surveillance can really check that your data is correct. And also documentation under other legislation. So you see that this will be kind of access to the European regulatory information from construction products. And the implementation is very complex, really complex. Why? because we are not isolated in the European market. Construction products is a big market. We have a lot of standards, but the problem, or not the problem, but we use materials that are used in other fields. For example, we were discussing aluminium. You can use aluminium in construction, but also outside construction. You have steel. Sometimes you have also some insulation that is used in appliances and in other products. For these, we have 4 levels of regulating this. The top level is really the eco-design. And this is why we are very well connected to the work that Martin is doing, because the horizontal part, the registry, the data carriers is common. Also because some products, you may not know if the product is going to be to construction or not. So we need a single entry point. So you need to have only one QR code. We don't want to have a product with 20 QR codes where you don't really know where the data will be. So the idea is that if you are covered by European legislation, you have one identifier, one QR code, and you get access to the data. There is a second level, which is the construction products regulation, where we establish really the rules that will only apply to construction products. And here we have the rules for the granularity, the rules about how long the data will be available. That is 10 years initially plus 15 years afterwards. So in principle, 25 years, but probably it will be longer. And also the documents and some really elements that cannot be negotiated anymore. So this was already adopted, is in the law. So these 2 first lines are already established. The third is the delegated act that I was mentioning, that this delegated act will establish more clearly how the system will work for construction. We are waiting also to see what is the outcome of the work in eco-design, because as I said, we are not creating an isolated system. It will not make sense, because then we will have the difficulties to interact with eco-design. So what we are doing is having a system that is integrated, but at the same time, we have some specificities that we need to really implement. One example, if you have mobile devices, you don't have a mobile device in the market for 10 years, so it's really too old. Nobody is placing the product on the market. We have product placed on the market from the 90s for which the declaration of performance didn't change. The product was there, the manufacturer is producing it, there is a market, there is no need to improve it. So in practice, we need to think of products that are continuously updated, such as Windows, but we also need to think of products that will not change, because this is how it's done and it's the best way, and there is no lot of margin for improvement. And also another important point is to link it to BIM, because BIM is not in eco-design. There are products in eco-design that are also construction products or are connected to buildings, but there are a lot of products that are, for example, textiles. The T-shirts will be in eco-design. There's no need to comply or to align to BIM because there is no interaction. In our case, it's the opposite. There are plenty of BIM tools already in the market. The market is working with BIM tools, so it doesn't make sense that we in the CPR try to create a starting point from the data that will be completely different. We are not doing this. We are doing the opposite. We are trying to get all the knowledge that you have in CNTC 442, but also in the market, and make sure that the data that we are digitalizing can be easily integrated in BIM. The limitations are, of course, the legal framework, and there are probably some adjustments that we need to do. But in principle, we are trying to follow as much as possible what is already in the market. And the last level is very, very important, and it's very important because we are in UNE. This is the Spanish standardization body, because it's impossible to draft a document that will explain how to digitalize information in general and will work. You cannot do that. So you cannot say, if you have a characteristic, you do it in this way. No. I want to digitalize cement. I have this characteristic, and I need to know how this will be digitalized, because it's different. In some products, you have testing that are kind of 3, and then you need to declare one or the other. This is not working. You cannot tell 10 persons to do this, because they will do something completely different. So you don't harmonize it. You just create a mess. That's why in the standards for the CPR, we will have also these digitalization guidelines. So in every standard, the manufacturer will know what needs to be done and where it needs to be declared. So that's the goal. Some people say we are very ambitious, but I think we need to, because this is really the goal, that we really make the regulatory information useful for the market. And this is an example. So those of you who work with data templates, you will see that the table really resembles a bit of information that usually is in BIM. And you also will see that there are some elements that are not very well known. You have AVS, Assessment and Verification System. This is the activities of third-party verification of the product. This is something that is not so relevant in the digitalization world. It's very relevant in our system because it is important. If you are 4, there is no notified body involved. If you are 1+, the notified body more or less go together with you during all the process. So it's important to declare this in the legal framework. But you see that the information that is usually in digitalization, the reference document, the units, this is aligned to the structure of BIM. And these kind of tables will be in the Annex A of the standards. So when you will have the standard, you will have these tables. You don't need to draw your own tables and potentially go in a different way. Will it be the best way? Probably not, but it will be the way that everybody uses. And there is also information that will be legal, but also in this kind of legal information, we are also using the same structure because we want to really promote the understanding of the BIM system into the regulatory framework. So I think this is my main message for today, that the integration of the CPR into BIM is a crucial element, and we need to do it together. We need to get all the benefits of all the work you did during the last years, and you have to get the benefits of having a very strong policy that will force everybody to follow, including regulators and everybody in the market. So some key message to finish. We're integrating fully digitalization. So it's not that we are just addressing it partially. We trust and we think that standards are the key to do it properly. So we are not having a high level or regulatory document that will implement it. No, it will be the standard who will really define this. We need to ensure interoperability through data dictionaries. So that's a key element to make sure that the data that we are going to request to be in the market is really used. And also, this is a goal, be a one-stop shop, that anytime you have a product in front of you, you just scan the QR code, and at least for the European legislation, you have everything you need. If a product is a window with an engine and also whatever kind of curtain or whatever, you will have all the information. You will have the declaration of performance. You will have also the information about the eco design of the element, but also the safety as a machine, because the engine is a machine. Everything should be there. How we will do it, trying to make sure that all this implementation works properly through the elements that we have already been discussing for years. And as I said, we think that harmonization has the potential to deliver the input to achieve our goals. Once we will have this, any goal about decarbonization, improve efficiency will be easier. That's the goal. The goal is to be the enablers to really make our policy and our goals, both at European and national level, or even at company level, easier and faster, and stop discussing about how to get the data and start discussing on how we are going to improve construction, which is the final goal. So I hope I explained it a bit. I think for those of you who work with the CPR, you know that this is just the very top, the cherry in the cake, because there is a big cake we have to eat. But for those of you who do not work with the CPR, I think the message should be clear. The CPR can be a very useful tool. If we all work together, we really make a difference. This should be the game changer for the construction in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Oscar. A lot of information and a lot of questions, I suppose.
Yes.
We keep the questions for the round table, and we will go into the other part, the system and the standards. the standards are also for the system, of course. And we want to hear Sven. Thank you.
So the time is past 12, so I will say good afternoon.
You're in Spain.
Okay, still morning. We will have lunch in 2 or 3 hours. I don't know. Okay. The shifter is here. Thank you, Une, Aitor, for inviting me to speak. There has been a lot of information already, and I will provide quite some more information. I will try to. The day started with BIM, ISO 9650. Now Oscar has talked about the CPR and the DPP. I will try to show what we do in TC442 to connect this back to BIM and how it also can connect to ISO 9650 processes, because there is a clear connection there, but we have to understand it and we have to implement this. I work in a software company called CoBuilder. I'm very lucky to have an employer that has focus on standardization work, and that I'm allowed to work on standardization activities as much as I can do. Very pleased with that. We see it as very beneficial to contribute to standardization work in the industry. We need more volunteers working on this level. I've been part of CEN/TC 442 since the first meeting. I've been there for 10 years, and I have been leading the works on data templates, developments of data templates. This is strongly connected to data dictionaries. I'll come back to these different topics. I'm also part of Building Smart product domain in the steering committee there. I had a talk with Sergio, Building Smart Spain here in the break. And my first slide, I like to start with this because we talked about to succeed with what we talk about today. The companies or the stakeholders, we need to change to succeed with the goal of the European Commission to reduce the emissions, carbon emissions. We need to change. We need to look at this as an opportunity, not a risk. It is an opportunity to build something new, something better. And that's something that message we have to give to the industry stakeholder through the channels that we have. I'm not here to talk about the ESPR, but that is where the digital product passport comes from. So this is something we have to take into account when we work in the construction industry and also in CEN/TC 442. The ESPR brings in the sustainability aspects of products. The ESPR is there to make sustainability, sustainable products the norm. That's the goal. And also reduce the overall carbon footprint of products. So we talk about eco-design requirements here. And that's linked to essential characteristics. We have to take these aspects into account when we talk about DOPCs and DPPs, and properties and data. The ESPR establishes the concept of a digital product passport. That is what we have to adopt into the construction industry. But the concept comes from a cross-industry level, the ESPR. In the CPR, I might be repeating a little bit here, but I think this is good to repeat. It's important. In Article 75, it is stated that the digital product passport shall be interoperable with BIM. And how do we do that? So we have touched that a little bit today, but this is a task that we have in CEN TC 442, because we are working on digitalization of the construction industry. So this is a task that we have taken, and we are working closely with the Commission, closely with the standardization work in CEN CENELEC JTC 24 on DPPs, on making this happen. So we need the data in digital product passports to be accessible, usable, interoperable with BIM, ISO 19650. It's key. Oscar has brought this up already. In the CPR, a new concept has been established compared to the old CPR. So first, what is called the common technical language, the essential characteristics and the requirements for products needs to be digital, and it needs to be machine readable. And it shall be established and accessible through a common data dictionary. So now, yeah, and here also for each product family or category, the data dictionary should include all the essential characteristics and other properties as set out in the harmonized technical specifications. So this is something we are working on in CEN TC 442. In practice, we have been working on this topic for many years, but now we need to deliver, because the digital product passport, the introduction of that will happen very soon. So the timeline is quite tight. Now I will explain what we do in on the BIM standardization side. CEN and ISO, Øyvind, you touched the Vienna Agreement. We bring in the relevant standards from on ISO level, make them also applicable for Europe, E and ISO, through this Vienna Agreement. So we have a series of standards that I like to call it the technical framework for data dictionaries and data templates. The data dictionary standard is from ISO level. We have taken that in to European level. On top of that, we have developed two other standards supporting data templates and data dictionaries. I'll come back to that. And on top of this, again, we have started to develop methodologies, how to make properties, how to develop data templates. How do we do this? Because these standards are quite complex, quite technical. So we need to provide guidance for the industry to start to develop this. So we have the one on the right side, on the bottom, it's EN ISO 22057. This is a standard that was developed to make environmental product declarations, EPDs, BIM compatible, more compatible. In the middle, we are developing a guideline for the CEN technical committees, not only products, but also design standards, design and product TCs, to create data templates, make properties as part of their work on developing product standards and design standards. Eurocodes is relevant here. And on this one, this is in CEN TC 442 Working Group 12. This is the delivery where we are connecting the requirements that Oscar talked about from the CPR to BIM. So this is a specific delivery for making a DOPC, Declaration of Performance and Conformity, digital. So what are these standards?
2 minutes.
5 minutes. This is a data model, then I will skip the details here. This is important. This is a standard that explains how to create properties. So we need one way of creating properties. So this standard provides a list of metadata for each properties for properties. To make things machine readable, we need more information than just the name of the property and a unit. It's not enough. So we need to be very precise. And there's a process, government process, on how to do this. So we are implementing this standard, and we are providing guidelines so technical committees, domain experts can follow it. Then we are explaining how to make data templates, assembling properties into data templates, linking it to product categories. This is a methodology I talked about. We are working on a guideline for the CENTCs to digitize the content of product standards. This is needed. We need to have the technical requirements for products in a machine-readable format. Example, this is a property table, very similar to what Oscar showed. So we are following the same approach, the same attributes, metadata per property. Same for EPDs, following the same approach. This is already published. This is on ISO level. Yeah, just to see that we are following the same technical approach here. The digital DOPC will do exactly the same. We are following the data dictionary standard. We are following the data template approach, and we are more specifically supporting the technical the requirements from the CPR for the essential characteristics. This table is from the old Smart CE marking. This will be changed. This work is ongoing, but again, it will be following the same approach. So this is a picture showing that under this level, that mainly Oscar talked about, there's a lot. There's a lot of work that has been done, and we have to take this in because this level will be implemented by software. And how do we do that? There's a lot of technical parts here that needs to be part of the implementation. And what we are focusing on in the context of a DPP is this part, the digital declaration of performance and conformity. We have not talked about the standardization work in JTC 24 much today, but there comes standards from that we will probably talk more about in the question session that we need to take into account. There will come standards that describes how the DPPs shall be handled in a DPP system, and we need to take that into account. So we are closely collaborating with experts from JTC 24 to make sure that our standards are compliant with these standards. And I have a couple of slides left now. Am I over time?
No,
Yeah.
1 minute. Yeah, definitely.
The message I want to bring in is that we have done a lot of this. A lot of the standards are ready. What we talk about today is relevant for the other areas in BIM. So these are, I've tried to collect the areas we work with in TC 442. ISO 9650, what we talk about here is highly relevant. We already have a technical support for using data templates and data dictionaries as part of the level of information need framework. IFC, the technical part, is there. So a lot is in place. We just have to start to implement it. This is something I started to work on the play down here. So this is something we need to work on together, but we need to visualize what we talk about. What we have been working on in working group for so many years. Data dictionary is not nothing isolated. It's connected to a lot of things. We are connecting different data dictionaries. The DPP system is connected to data dictionaries, product catalogs from manufacturers, but also we need to get the BIM software vendors on board to implement these standards. So that is my message today, that standards are there. They are published or soon to be published, but we need to start to use them and we need to implement them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. We have some questions from the audience online, and please come to the round table. Martin and Aitor and Espen and Oscar, please. I would like to start with a question related to the system. The European Commission had commissioned a case study for UNE and Covailer and Tecnalia to study the options from the DPP system. Oscar, do you have new information on that?
Well, what I said is that the best option from the point of view of the study is option 2, which is that you will always need a DPP service provider to host the DPP data, and also they may help you to digitalize the information if you have a contract with them. But we are thinking to also allow manufacturers to become DPP service provider to facilitate that some companies also do it on this. For the customer will be the same, and also if the added value of having a DPP service provider is that they will have a bit higher expertise on the digitalization, and we can also make sure that the data will have a higher quality. The drawback, I would say, is that potentially it will be less flexible. But the option 3, that is that the manufacturer hosts the data himself in all cases, had a big drawback, that is you need a backup in case the company goes bankrupt. So in practice, this option 3 was a kind of overloading system in which you have your data, but also there is a backup. So what is the added value of having 2 data sets, and what was the reference, the backup? So the situation now is that we are going to propose this option 2, but the final decision will be taken when we will adopt the delegated act. And just for your information, the delegated act will be submitted to public consultation. So we will collect also feedback about how it will be, and if you have also ideas or opinions, will be taken into consideration. And of course, you can also already tell us if you have some concerns that we can address in the drafting.
Okay, there's a lot of position from the manufacturers, but there's less, I think, positions from the national regulators. So there's a position from you, Martin, on this.
Yeah, also our Norwegian regulation or regulator is looking forward to the DPP in general. We have a society that is quite digitally advanced. The 85-year-old is used to use e-banking and make the registration for a dog themselves on the mobile phone and so on. And it's quite unique. And we are always looking for change, for options to make the data flow. Only data that flows is useful. Data in silos is useless. So yes, the DPP is really and that is a big draw we get from the European Union when this is established. And that's why we engage ourselves here as well.
And the result of this study is the delegated act. And is it close to be ready, or we have to wait?
We are in the hands of Martin and the colleagues also in DG Grow, in my DG, dealing with the horizontal framework for the ESPR. Because what we do not want is to start presenting something that at one point may have a conflict with the top-level framework. So in my slide on the top level, you have the ESPR. So we want to have a more clear view about how the part of the ESPR will be implemented to make sure that we can already take profit of it. So for example, I think there is already a consultation about DPP service providers. So there is no point to establish some requirements to DPP service providers if in eco-design they are already discussing it. So we may complement what they will do, but it will not make sense to work in parallel and not take into consideration what it is being done at the highest level.
Okay, I would like to add, so from the status from JTC, we developed 8 standards that make the framework, the background, the backbone of the whole system. We started with this in June last year, and we have submitted 7 of the 8 standards to inquiry. They will come on the 18th of September from the national standardization bodies. I think this is standardization on the speed of light, 8 standards in less than 1 year. We have 1 standard that goes into inquiry in a week or 2. That is on security. So, there is, what is actually important thing is when we started with this, everybody was talking about battery regulation. I said, listen, guys, batteries are very easy to digital product passport. You make them in a closed confinement, in a highly skilled people, highly automated. It's no problem to control the quality. You have control over all the manufacturers. The problem are the construction products, the textile. They are done by unskilled workers somewhere in the whatever. And they also have to have a DPP. And it was, we had 3 people. Only Oscar is not in the JTC 24. It's Aitor, it's Espen, it's me, it's Otto Handler, it's Halvard from here, that all have taken leading roles and turned the thing. And now even the battery regulation understands that there is another world outside. And we have transferred a lot of experience from TC442 into this JTC 24, not only because Oyvind helped us to establish JTC 24. That was one of the reasons we got into the whole thing. So this TC 442 had, by the people involving themselves, a very big impact. And now we hope we get something out that Oscar can use further when developing the DPP for the construction products. And okay, textiles and steel and so coming on, but the CPR is only one step behind the battery regulation. They will probably both in 27 come with a delegated act, hopefully. So this is also a complement to the competence and the knowledge of this TC442, because we had quite a big footprint on JTC 24. And the reason why we managed to do this 1 year standardization.
Thank you. The mandatory information in the DOPC is related to mechanical, physical, and environmental performance, as well as general product information. But some believe that this information should be complemented with data that significantly increase the added value of this information, like commercial information on non-essential characteristics. And on this stream, some believe that the DPP system could be compatible or could be converted in, let me say, an Amazon of construction products or something like that. What is your view on that? We know that this is not a good idea. This is not the idea of the Commission, but it's a pressure increasing the added value of this just regulatory information. Oscar and Espen, would you have a vision of that?
I can take maybe the market side. What I talked about today is a framework for developing common technical language that can be used also for all kind of information for products. So we expect that the industry will adopt this to solve also the market needed information outside the regulatory part. Also, there are parts of the content in standards, product standards, that are not part of the CPR that needs to be can be also exchanged. So we expect that software implementation will support this technical framework, and then it's natural to add on the other parts of the information. I would expect the DPP doesn't exist yet, so we don't know. But I expect the software providers to offer solutions that will include the DPP, but also will provide additional services.
I was going to mention before, probably covering. You mentioned, but Oscar was leading a project before he was in the Commission, the Smart Sea project that was mentioned before. It created a proposal for a data structure for construction products for the DOP, or the old CPR, and we in Spain we took it with Arturo, with Miguel, with many people in Spain, and we made. We use the same data structure for additional information, just making a slight change to identify that the requirement is not linked with the regulation, and also because you have to present the information separately. You cannot mix regulated and unregulated information, which probably what you are going to say. But what I mean is the data structure can be the same. We can deliver tools. I think the standardization can deliver tools for all of this. The issue is just to be careful on how you store it and how you communicate it, because there are legal requirements not to mislead people into thinking that something is regulated and it is not. On how, or for example, someone may visit your factory if it's performance related with fire, for example. But if you are declaring the color, no one will check it. So it is important that the market, that the user knows who takes the blame for this data.
Yeah. So from the Commission, what we call DPP is the European regulated DPP. It is European regulated, means CPR, but also other policies at European level. But any other complementary system is allowed while it does not interfere or could be misleading or just interact in a way that could be undermine the other part. And this is more, we are never opposing this kind of delivery of useful information. On the contrary, but we should be careful because you cannot really put this information at the same level. So while it is very clear that this is separated data, it can use the same structures. You can benefit from the same digitalization approach. This is not a problem. Just the messages don't mix it, don't make it look like regulatory information, and then it will be okay.
As just mentioned, yesterday we had the group for the digital DOPC. In the Spanish standard, as I said, we have a special clause for additional information, and in the European one, we will not have it. I don't think, or at least I will not propose it, because we need to be fast and it will be complicated. But I think it's something that is needed, but we have to deliver like by stages. We need to deliver soon, because the cement industry and others will have to deliver a digital DOPC very soon. So if TC442 does not deliver on time, they will have to follow whatever they want to follow, an XML, a JSON, or an Excel file, or whatever they want, and that might endanger the integrity of the system. So we have to cover the regulated information as soon as possible, and after that, probably a good task would be how we can incorporate this additional information into the system.
Thank you. Going into the details,
I'm going to send around these buttons here. You can just switch on your mobile phone, and then you hold it on the top. Now, and then you can experience a digital product passport, how it's going to be. And there is voluntary and mandatory. It's not a digital product passport. It's a demonstrator. But send it around would be nice if it comes back to me.
How it works with
NFC chip, yeah. And it works with the normal phones. Just to,
NFC, that's completely activated.
The point is that in the same data carrier, which is this, you may have a separation and you get the regulatory data and non-regulatory data. If this is like this, it works. And this is what we are discussing in the eco-design approach. This is kind of solution works well. So that's
we are allowing in JTC, in the standards, they are allowing voluntary data, what we call, and that is the non-mandatory data. So you can use other information as well. And that could be pictures and videos, but the regulators will have to make sure that this doesn't become a gimmick, a show. But that is then the regulator that has to put down there.
I just mentioned that part of the additional information we include, but now it will be included. I think it's known, but it's the environmental information. In the standard we had, it was voluntary because at that time it was not mandatory to include, but now it will be mandatory, and I think it will be a game changer for digitalization, because it's not feasible to make a sustainability assessment of an asset if you do not have a digital model? How will you integrate all the elements?
Okay, thank you. There's a question in the room. Please.
I think if you can speak, Marco.
Thank you. I'll try and keep this simple. For the regulatory data, market surveillance can intervene if that regulatory data is inaccurate or dishonest. What about the non-regulatory data? I ask the question because, as you know, in the UK, we have some challenges around accuracy, and we don't think those challenges are limited to our side of the English Channel.
So, just to be clear, at European level, for the regulatory data, we have these market surveillance authorities that are really specifically addressing the regulatory data. But the voluntary data is also subject to the regulation on false claims. So the problem is that the member states focus and allocate much more resources to the regulatory data than to the voluntary data. So this kind of market surveillance is more reactive. So if it's more a competitor really complaining about the inaccuracy of data, and then these kind of authorities act, because we are lucky to have a sector in which market surveillance is not very strong, but it's also not needed. You don't see buildings collapsing. So in practice, the resources that market surveillance have at national level are very limited and usually focus on the regulatory part. We will see in future. We, as Commission, we are now discussing some initiatives because we would like to strengthen market surveillance. We already did it in the regulation, but we really think that there is also some of side effects of these kind of false claims that should be prevented, and is more related to the competitiveness, not so much to the lack of safety, which is the big issue, but which goes against the competitiveness of the sector if it's not dangerous, but it's also not legit, and you really need to compete with these companies that are not working properly.
Okay, I got a question related to that. Is that we know that the producer is responsible for the declaration, liable with the regulation, but what is the framework, or what is the standard doing in relation with the accuracy, completeness, and security, data authentication, cybersecurity in general of the DPPs? Is in the standards, is in the system, is in both sides?
There is a top level in the eco-design that is being discussed, and we will establish additional elements that are specific for the CPR. For example, in the CPR, we request that the technical documentation of the manufacturer is in the DPP, but its access is restricted to market surveillance authority. So we will set up a system to control the access to this information, because we don't want that anybody can just extract this information because it could be confidential or even dangerous. And there is also some discussions at a high level on the eco-design. So the idea is to address this, is possible at the horizontal level and specifically for the CPR, considering the specificities of the sector.
Can I add, as the high level thing is the unique identifier, and it's the data carrier. That's what we're just passing around here. This is one form of the data carrier. There are always several. There are not only one. There are always several unique identifiers, data carriers, so we get the competition. Then we have access rights. We have interoperability. We have data processing, data exchange protocols, and data formats. We have data storage, archiving, and data persistence, data authentication, so that you know it's the right one, reliability and integrity, and we have application on programming interfaces, so that is the machine readable part. And that is sort of the basic functions of a DPP system that should be reused by all the different DPPs in all the industrial sectors, which is the requirement that this data can start flowing. What Oscar was in, that the steel can end up as a chassis for a Rolls-Royce or as a rebar in the construction industry. We don't know when it is produced, but the data has to flow across the industries. And by reusing this and using these 8 parts, the European Commission has designed or asked for a system that enables this. So this must be also when you go back to your national countries, that this needs to be reused as much as possible. Otherwise, we create silos again, and then the whole data flow stops.
Okay. Going into the details, the DOPC includes information from the mechanical part, strength, chlorides, setting time in the case of cement, and the environmental part, and also the risks of dangerous substances. The working group 12 is working on a standard that is dealing with the mechanical part, but the environmental part will be declared by the ISO 22057. Why this separation? If the DOPC is one and the declaration is one, it's any reason to separate the information into standards?
You want to start?
I think you should start. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, first of all, before digitalizing, before this standard, we already have the EN ISO. As Oyvind explained, we have the Vienna Agreement, which we used in this standard, which was developed in TC 350, dealing with sustainability. We have a standard for BIM-compatible data templates for EPDs, which has several gaps. One of them, or several of them, were pointed out in the chat. The reason we are not including this, we are the work Espen, Halvard, and many people are doing in the working group is incredible. If you are not participating, you don't see it, but we are having meetings nearly each week. There are some weeks with 2 meetings, trying to deliver soon, because the Commission will have a delegated act, because the practices will have to deliver something. We're working really fast. So we are trying to develop the rules that properties must follow. And the most complicated tools of all are the environmental performance indicators. Why? Because they are, usually you have a test, a result with some units. This is what you have in a declaration of performance, and it's quite easy. But for environmental performance, you have the module. It can be the module use of water. And then you have 5 scenarios. And the product might be, for each scenario, in a different location in the building. So you will have hundreds and hundreds of data, and they will be interlinked. And if you are in a BIM environment, you are supposed to let the software identify where it's located. So it will take a while. And also in the working group, we don't have the technical knowledge or enough technical knowledge for things. So we will probably, after we finish the working group 12, Espen is participating, Oscar also participated in the working group dealing with the other standard, and running are well known by you all. The idea is after once the working group 12 standard is like well established, we will start working in the revision of this ISO standard that hopefully will be used, we will see, to deliver environmental information.
Yeah, I can just comment. You say why 2 standards, but it's important to know that what's important here is the content of the standards and 2 different documents, but they're pointing to the same, what I refer to as a technical framework. So use the same standards as a basis there. So the approach is the same. There has been some revisions of these technical standards that needs to be taken in the upcoming revision of this EPD 2257 standard. But at the end, what is important here is that software that is going to be implement this will have one framework to follow. So even if it's 2 documents, it will also be 2 documents in the future, because not all EPD data is in the scope context of the CPR, but the framework, the data model and the formats will be the same.
Okay. One question from the online people connected. If you sell a product in different countries with different requirements, how do you manage the DOPC? And I think that EPP, it's a single DOPC, or both countries, or different DOPCs for different countries. Is the same the product in each country? I think this already answered, but
Well, the point is the following. So the DPP and the DOPC is one DPP and DOPC for Europe. You cannot have DOPC for France or for Spain. This doesn't work. But in the same DOPC, you may have characteristics that are only used in France and others that are only used in Spain. And then the manufacturer placing products in France do not necessarily need to declare the characteristics in Spain, and the opposite. You can do it if you want. If you are placing the products in both markets, you need to declare both. So this is the flexibility. But there is no DOPC separated. So if, for example, you are a multinational and you place products in Europe, in general, you probably will need to declare all of them or almost all of them. If you are placing products in only one country, you can really limit this. And what we are doing in the process is to collect all the characteristics to make sure that when you have the standard, you know everything. And then you have to check with every member state and for each application what is needed. We have a system in the regulation, which is the product contact points. So all member states are obliged to have a way to provide information about what is needed for each product and every application. It's not working very well in some countries. This is something that we are also trying to improve. But also we are expecting that when we will digitalize the information, it will be also easier for product contact points to check what they need. So because now one of the problems is that the standards are not so clear and it's sometimes difficult for the national authorities to know what they need. But in the moment they will have a list, they can really check what is needed in their countries. So it's something that is already there and will be also improved through digitalization.
Cement is the first product to develop the CPRX process. We have the standardization request, and we have the information to digitalize all the information in the DOPC. The information that we have in the standardization request is very short. We have almost nothing. And my question is, how do we start with the process? I think if we have now in this moment more information, we have to wait. We have to start now with the essential characteristics, with the tables that will be ready at the end of this the process of the writing of the harmonized standard. What is your recommendation?
My recommendation is that you start with the technical characteristics. You discuss the assessment methods, the list of essential characteristics, the scope, and all the technical discussions. And when the work developed by the groups and also the Guide 36, the Guide for Writing Standards, will give you additional guidance, then you can move to digitalization. But it's a step that is better to take a bit later. So first is really fill the tables with the technical information, and then once you have this information, it will be easy to implement this other digitalization approach. And on this, I think the work of CENTIC 442 is very important, but also CEN Management Center is also working with us, with the Commission, to facilitate the process. The case of cement is I think you are the front runner of this. Your standards will not be very easy, but they are quite complex. But at the same time, we really think that it won't be so complex in practice, because we have a lot of experience. You have already digitalization background, so we really think this will be managed properly.
Okay, we have the last question. Is a question related to the plastic sector. It is applicable to the plastic construction products. There's a comment right now that it is not fully harmonized, I think. The example is plastic pipe and fittings. What happens if there's no harmonization in the product?
So all what I said about the digital product passport only apply from the moment you have a standard under the new CPR, and this standard is cited in the official journal. So there is a process to do it, to draft the standards. The standards already will consider digitalization, but the obligation to have a digital product passport will only be triggered when there will be a standard for this. Plastic pipes and fittings is in the work program of the Commission. They are not very high in our priority list. So the standards will take some time until they will be ready. But when these standards will be ready, all the system will apply to them, including the digitalization and also the environmental declaration. And until this point is there, the industry can already work to improve the standards and to make sure that when we will reach this point, we are ready. But they cannot implement a digital product passport until you really, under the CPR, under the regulatory framework of the Commission, until you have a standard under the CPR.
Okay. We have to close. Maybe last commentary if you wish to yes.
Sí, hablamos. Okay, so I have one question. Can this digital product passport potentially substitute the technical specs in public procurement?
Well, in practice, the CPR established that a member state cannot establish public procurement outside the DPP. So it's the opposite. All public procurers will need to use the DPP in their tenders.
So then, for example, in Spanish regulation, the Building Act, the one specific for buildings,
yes,
establishes, as well as the Public Contract Act, establishes the documents that have to be inside a project, what is considered a project. And there is a specification document, specific, mandatory in Spanish regulation, right? So potentially that document could disappear.
No, that document should refer always to the DPP if it exists.
The performance characteristics in our building code, they make reference to the harmonized standards today. So all the terminology will not change, it's the same. And you see that it's according to standard, and you have a clause stating you have to gather all the declaration of performance and the CE marking. It's in the code. Now they will probably ask, you will have to gather, or you will have to preserve the links to the DPP, or it will be changed. But the performance characteristics will be exactly the same. The DPP contains values that the manufacturer declares, and your responsibility as in a construction site is to check that the product complies with your client brief or your...
And for example, in our preparatory process for the standards, we have the Spanish ministry and the writers of the code that are delivering what they need, which is what they have already in the code, and we are including it in the... So there will be only, imagine that different member states have different assessment methods. This will be the only situation in which you may need to adapt to refer to the European method, but usually the system is already in place for a lot of standards, and there is no, we haven't identified big change in the approach. And the data, instead of coming now from the declaration of performance or other documents, will always be through the DPP, but there is no change of the data itself that will be required.
Okay, the last question from the audience is very specific. The windows are project and specific configured in different sizes and openings for a specific place or for a specific project. So what is to manage this situation? Because the DPP could be very specific. It's not a general product, or it's not a family product, it's a single product.
We are discussing now the standardization request for Windows. And there was a big discussion also with regulators to see if we should have a declaration per window, or really we can go to a granularity that is a bit higher. So for the moment, and it's not endorsed, so we will see how it goes, but there will be declaration for a reference size. And so in practice, the declaration of performance will refer always to a reference size. And then you will have the same declaration of performance applicable to all the sizes, but you will have the information to calculate the performance of every size. So you get a declaration of performance of this combination of glass and frame and elements with the reference size. And if you are doing, for example, the energy calculation for the energy certificate, you will have also the data to calculate for every window how to do it. And this will be digitalized with the idea that you will just introduce it in the software for the calculation of the energy performance of the building. But we are not imposing an obligation to the manufacturers to have a DPP per window, because this will be millions of windows. So this is something that we are discussing in the CPR. Is a bit different to the ESPR because we define it product by product according to the rules in the standard.
But I have one question. What is the environmental data for the window?
Yeah, for the environmental data, we will use the similar approach. There will be the declaration of the reference unit, and you will have also rules to extrapolate or interpolate this information for the size of the window. So if you have the declaration of the environmental impact of 1 square meter, if you have a window of 2 square meters, there will be a way to calculate what is the environmental impact of a bigger size.
But if they have different suppliers for glass and aluminium, then will there be a difference there, or?
No, if you have different suppliers, the data will come from the window. So there is a DPP for the window, and the window always have one glass and one frame. So if you have different suppliers, you will have 2 DPPs with 2 sets of data.
Okay, so you know if.
Exactly. So you 1 DPP per combination, but not 1 DPP per combination and size. This will be too much.
The good thing is that you will have, if I'm right, you will have a URL, you have a link. You just put it in your software and you can retrieve all data because it's machine readable. You don't have to input anything. You just have to put the URL or whatever.
You need to calculate all the sizes of your windows or the length of all the frames and then do a calculation. So this will be the more in the BIM side. You will need to have a tool that you will see in the data dictionary what is the data you will get from the manufacturer, and with this data you need to model it to calculate the building.
But the manufacturer for the glass, when you change it, do you have to change your DPP then or not?
No, when the manufacturer of the glass, they deliver the information to the manufacturer of the window, and the manufacturer of the window needs to keep it updated with the glass.
With the right, from the right place, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you use different types of glass, you will have different DPPs for the window. So I don't think there will be few DPPs for windows. There will be a lot. But it won't be 1 DPP per window in the individual window. So that's we will see in future, but
Where's Luca now?
Yeah. Can speak loud.
Yeah.
Oh.
My question is related to a discussion we had in the thermal insulation products, a key expert group, and also at national level. And it is relating to ethics kits, because there is one of the discussion is to kind of try to shorten the kit, the EOP, and to put somewhere else some essential characteristics that are not in discussion will decide if they are not as so important. But it is very clear to me that only what is in the DOP of the product, in this case, it could be regulated at member state level. So if you put it somewhere else, I don't know where, but somewhere else, it could not be regulated anymore. Is it? And then the other question, what does somewhere else mean? Because it was reported in some minutes somewhere else. I don't understand where this could finally end.
This is important, and that's why in the process to draft a standardization request, we have the regulators. So they need to say what is needed and what parts of the information will be regulated and will be the basis to decide or to do the calculations, and what part is really not regulatory required and is just information. So in this case, basically, if a regulator is regulating a characteristic of the product, it will be in the declaration of performance of the kit. But this depends in a case by case, because sometimes the information may not be something you assess and declare, maybe a characteristic of the product that is not really so clear. But so this is why this process takes a lot of time and why we need to take point by point. So it's difficult to reply without a real case.
Yeah. But anyway, I understand that this somewhere else means that it's not regulatory anymore.
There is a place where we have information. For example, for cement, we have the instructions for use and safety information, have the cement type. So this information is very useful because it allows the continuity with the system as we have for the cement type being used for years. But information is complementary and it's always delivered and is in the standard also, but it doesn't have the same value because, for example, it's not subject to third-party validation. So the new regulation is very flexible. We have specific elements that can address these potentially information needs, but I cannot tell you
but it's
if this is really one of the cases or not.
I have an extra point which is related to key components, which is a new concept. And so the key component must be CE marked under an harmonized standard. And so I think there is no prior example to refer to, but could it be that the key component DOP is available via the product passport and could have an higher status, let's say, because it's an official DOP and so be regulated at the same level as the DOP of the kit?
The approach is that when you have a key part in a product, this is something that we discuss product by product. We are not having a lot of key parts, but we have a key part. The DPP of the key part needs to be traceable in the product. So if you have a key part of a big product, you need to have the DOPC, the DPP of the key part in the DPP of the product. So there should be always a connection.
So thank you very much. We have to close the meeting. I think that has been a very fruitful and interesting meeting. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Spen. Thank you, Oscar. And Aitor. And if you want to say something, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you to you all. The presentation will be available soon in PDF format. Thanks to all the speakers. Thanks to you for being here and for the people. Thanks to Building Smart Spanish chapter 2. Now we will have a lunch, but I'm not sure if it has arrived. If not, we will have to wait a little bit. And thank you. Thank you.